It's late in the night when Loki returns to his room, and you've long since fallen asleep. Curled up in his bed and carefully tucked under the blankets. You try to stay up to wait for him, but exhaustion eventually won out, and you're a little startled when the cold air suddenly brushes against your skin as he crawls into bed with you.
Loki? Everything okay?
You whisper, rolling over and squinting in the darkness.
No. But is it ever?
He mumbles, dragging you close. You smell the sweet spice of drink on his breath, and your nose crinkles.
Are you drunk?
Possibly. Only a little.
Loki.
It is your own fault, mortal. You laid here pining for me for hours after I left. Wretched girl. It was nearly impossible to concentrate.
He says, his tone bordering on petulant. Mortification seeps through you, because it might be true, if you're being totally honest with yourself, that you have been feeling a bit more friendly towards him after his little dance lesson. A feeling made much worse by the fact that he'd insisted on tucking you into bed afterwards. And sure, maybe you had daydreamed a little bit about how pretty and imposing he looked, all decked out with his Jotunheim markings highlighted. And maybe, just maybe, you'd considered giving yourself some relief. You hadn't, because the thought of being suddenly interrupted was too terrifying, but you might have considered it.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean...
So miserable.
Loki continues, and you freeze as his hand wraps loosely around your neck. His thumb caresses the hollow of your throat, but he doesn't do anything else, and your heart pounds.
Some lord from the west was trying to convince me to marry his niece. Meanwhile, all I could think of was you, here in my bed, wanting.
I didn't realize you could tell. From that far away, I mean.
Oh, I can. I can tell now, as well.
Your racing heart seems to speed even more, anticipation building. You want to kiss him, but you don't. You do, however, decide to run your fingers through his hair.
I'm glad you didn't dance with Scotty.
You whisper. It can't hurt to admit. He probably won't even remember it when the morning comes.
I am glad that I danced with you. Very pretty.
He replies, sighing sleepily as he nuzzles against your hair.
You think so?
He makes a soft hum of acknowledgement.
I'll have to kill my brother. Too interested in you.
What lovely pillow talk.
I really don't think that's a problem, Loki. We're like irrevocably bonded already, remember?
I could still try and steal you away. You are my mortal, you know.
He yawns, then rolls onto his back, and you rest your head on his chest, listening to his slow, steady heartbeat. He sounds a little petulant, and if he wasn't threatening to murder one of his siblings while half asleep and tipsy, you would almost be tempted to laugh.
Yeah?
My bondmate.
He yawns again, and when he speaks, his voice is barely audible.
I wish things were different.
You do?
But Loki doesn't answer, and you snuggle closer against him and listen to his slow breathing, wondering what sort of thing could have been if only things were different. You're really surprised when Loki is still in bed with you when you wake up in the morning, flat on his stomach, his face buried in a pillow. He's got you pinned under one of his arms, and if it wasn't for the very light snoring, You'd be a little worried that he was dead, because he's completely limp and heavy.
Hey, Loki? You awake?
You wiggle your arm free and run your fingers through his hair.
No.
His voice is muffled by the pillow, and he doesn't budge.
Headache?
He seems to like it when you scratch his scalp, so you keep doing it. And he turns his head towards you after a moment or two, his eyes narrowed into thin slits.
Can I help?
This is helping.
Loki closes his eyes and sighs, and a wistful sort of happiness bleeds through you. He looks peaceful, content almost.
You really have no desire for me to get rid of Bilister? Oh, right there.
No, definitely not.
Save that energy for people who actually deserve it.
Interesting. I thought you'd tell me I shouldn't kill anyone at all.
I mean, that's obviously preferable. If it comes down to life or death, though, I'd rather live. I guess all these close misses have made me a little more pragmatic.
Pragmatic? If only.
You wonder if he'd be mad if you kissed him. Probably. You wonder, too, if he remembers anything he said in bed last night. Probably not.
So, what's on the agenda? Gonna avoid me again today?
Loki grunts in annoyance, then rolls to his side, looking down his nose at you. He manages to pull off a surprisingly regal look, considering he seems to be dying of a hangover.
What do you want from me?
It's uncharacteristically straightforward, and you're slightly taken aback.
I honestly don't know.
A declaration of love, for you to sweep me off into the sunset, happily ever after, an extended honeymoon on Earth.
A kiss would be nice.
A kiss?
He breaks off abruptly, dragging his hand down his face.
That is all you want? A kiss?
Well, no. But it would be a good start. Like, maybe you could tell me good morning. Bonus points for using my actual name. And maybe a good morning kiss. Doesn't that sound nice?
Loki sighs in annoyance, and you're slightly hurt. But he does say good morning, and he does say your name. And then, very delicately, he leans forward and kisses you on the forehead.
Satisfied?
He's still only an inch or two away from you, and your breath catches in your throat. No, you think, and you're shocked that you got that much out of Mr. Ice King, so you just nod. Progress, maybe?
I meant what I said before, mortal. I cannot be what you want me to be.
He rolls over to grab a cup of water from the table by the bed, and you realize as he moves that some of his skin is still blue, a faint trail of markings trailing down his lower back.
And what is it that I want?
Based on his grimace, you're assuming that the cup held the same bitter potion he'd once given you.
A lover. A life mate.
We kinda already are mates, though.
You point out, yanking down the neck of your tunic to show off the irrefutable evidence.
Written in blood. Or written in skin, I guess. So, I don't see why we shouldn't...
Shouldn't what?
Maybe try to enjoy it?
No, I can already barely think with you around. I couldn't bear to make it worse. Besides, what sort of life would that be? You cannot tell me that you would be happy as a mistress, considering how keenly I feel your hurt every single time my marriage to Scouty is mentioned.
So don't marry her!
Ah, see? There it is.
You don't even like her.
Look, even on Asgard, even as Prince Loki Odinson mortal, I never once assumed that I would wed someone that I had any sort of genuine feeling towards. That isn't how things are done.
The admission kind of stuns you, because the idea of Loki not just doing whatever he wants seems more than a little strange.
But you aren't a prince anymore. You're a king.
And you are clever enough to know that what you are asking me will send this fragile peace I've managed to establish into chaos. Jotunheim needs stability now, particularly if my plans are to succeed.
You cross your arms, starting to feel a little irritated, partly because you know that he's probably right.
Well, it isn't like you're old or anything. Neither is Scotty. We could spend some time together, and then I'll die and be out of the picture, right? Problem solved.
He flinches slightly, and you can't honestly say that you hadn't meant for your words to sting, so you derive a tiny measure of satisfaction from it.
Don't say things like that.
You call me mortal more than you call me by my own name, so excuse me for being super aware of the fact that I'm going to die eventually. You've got time to be indecisive. I don't. I've decided. I like you, even when you're being impossible like right now. So yes, I do want you to put off marrying Scotty, or marrying anyone else. She's been engaged to help Lindy for centuries anyway, right? I imagine she can wait another few years before she gets her claws into you.
Loki seems upset, but he does look a little thoughtful too, and you decide that's a promising sign.
A temporary union. That is what you are proposing?
I mean, anything with me is going to be temporary by default, isn't it?
Oh crap, here come the tears. You'd hoped that you were calm enough to manage this conversation without crying, but it turns out that discussing your eventual demise isn't as easy as you might have hoped.
But there's, you better send me home right now, temporary, and then there's, we try to enjoy the time we have, temporary. You know?
I will consider it.
Wait. Really?
Yes, but I make no promises. Either way, we'll have to discuss it later. I was speaking truthfully when I said it was not a good time to deal with this problem of ours. We'll be leaving tomorrow morning for the mountains in the east, and it will be a difficult journey.
Wait, we're leaving again? So soon?
Wincing, Loki clamps a hand over your mouth.
Volume, mortal. Nons, my head is pounding. And yes, I would have little choice. The mountain giants in the east are unsettled by my ascension, it would seem. I want to show a good faith, in this case, for me to leave my sanctuary and visit with my court, and likely select one of their women to bring back with me. One of their lords spoke with me last night. Kaldgrani, he is called. From what I gather, he's not a great admirer of the Queen Mother, and he is eager to increase the influence of the mountain giants in the court.
You pull his hand away from your face, and it doesn't escape your notice that he lets you hold it in your lap.
The one who wants you to marry his niece?
How do you know about that?
You told me, remember? Last night.
Well, yes, he's the one. I should warn you that the Bergrasar are different. More rough.
Bergrasar?
The mountain giants, they will not understand why I am so careful with you, so permissive. Truly, I would almost be tempted to leave you behind here in the palace, but I'm not certain that even your twins could keep you safe in the long term, and I fear that the distance might be taxing, given how often I have to renew the charms that keep you warm.
Worse than the Iron Forest? Worse than Scotty's castle?
I'm afraid so.
Squeezing his fingers, you attempt to force a reassuring smile.
Great. Well, we're hard to kill, right? I'm sure we'll be fine. Though he returns your smile, there isn't much confidence in it.
One can only hope.
A servant brings something for Loki to eat before long, and he shares it with you. Though you aren't really feeling all that hungry, given the heaviness of the conversation. I don't know how you eat those biscuits. They taste like pure bitterness to me. You tell him, frowning over your mug of soup. Shrugging, he selects another green biscuit from the plate and dunks it into his own mug.
I've had much worse. But I suppose it must be an acquired taste. Jotunheim's resources are very unevenly distributed, you know. They don't have any sort of large-scale grain production from what I've seen. But I would very much like to eat an entire loaf of perfectly crusted Asgardian honey bread.
Honey bread sounds good. Maybe you could introduce that. I noticed in this book I was looking at that things used to look kind of different. Like there was a painting of what I guess is supposed to be some kind of royal feast, and there's a lot more variety.
And what book would that be, mortal?
The one that Bylister gave me, back weeks ago. Some kind of old magical king wrote it, but there are a lot of interesting things in it. There are drawings from all over Jotunheim.
Well, that is to be expected. From what I understand, there was a time when Jotunheim traded with some regularity with the other realms, and I suppose foodstuffs are likely high on their list of imports. That is also one reason that Loki wished to colonize Midgard. They could make comfortable colonies for Jotun occupation using the casket of ancient winters, but they would still be able to leave enough of the planet untouched to be able to fully exploit its resources.
That isn't what you're planning to do, is it? You try to sound casual as you ask.
No, Midgard bores me.
Rude. But still, it's nice to hear that he isn't planning to sweep down with yet another alien army to take over Earth. That would definitely cause even more complications in your already shaky relationship. Good.
Would you care to take a bath?
Loki asks. He doesn't meet your eyes. Yes. You reply, kicking yourself for sounding too eager. Maybe you should be glad for your awkwardness, though, because you think you see a hint of a smile on his lips.
I have no idea what I'm thinking. But I do not enjoy leaving you alone. It is more comfortable when you are close. You'd likely seem odd if I hid you away in any case, so it is likely for the best that I bring you with me when I hold court.
Sure. Whatever excuse you need, buddy.
As Gjalep hasn't interrupted us to report the untimely death of my brother, I can only assume that he's decided to keep our secret for now.
I told you so.
I still do not trust him. If he continues to test me, I will be rid of him.
Big brother of the year. Maybe you should mentor him or something. Take him under your wing, you know? Because I think one of the reasons he bothers you so much is that he reminds you of yourself, Loki.
I'm insulted. He made it explicitly clear that he owes his allegiance to his brother, in any case.
Shrugging, you get up to collect a change of clothes. I think it would be worth a shot. You could use some more allies, couldn't you? You're putting a lot of pressure on Greep and Gjalep, and they've got enough going on already. The trip to the steam pools is a little awkward. You had just been holding a perfectly normal conversation with him, but you have no choice to act demure and servile in the halls, trailing just behind him, your clothes clasped in your arms, and your head slightly bowed.
Stupid Jotunheim.
if you were queen, well, you probably shouldn't think about that. You'll just end up falling into stupid daydreams of things that are never going to happen. Your brain is kind of masochistic in that way. Both you and Loki just stand there in silence once you're safely hidden away in the bathing room. And if it wasn't so uncomfortable, you'd probably think that it was funny that he's gone from teasing you whenever he gets the chance to acting so uncertain now that you've actually admitted that you like him.
Gotta take matters into my own hands, I guess.
Loki clears his throat.
I will get in. You may follow at your leisure.
He turns to look at you over his shoulder, then his eyes widening in shock when he finds you already half undressed.
Wait, what are you doing?
You finish pulling off your tunic, praying to whoever's listening that you don't have a very unflattering blush going on right now. Just, trying to seduce you. When you begin to comb the tangles out of your hair, tilting back your head and putting your neck promptly on display, Loki makes a strangled sort of sound in the back of his throat. It makes you feel powerful. The leggings you wore last night have a tricky clasp on the side, and you begin to struggle with it, frowning.
Not the most seductive outfit, maybe. Definitely notes for next time.
Pat.
He was probably going for a warming tone, you imagine, but it comes out sounding more pleading than anything else. Maybe you aren't quite as terrible at this whole seduction thing. The clasp still isn't unfastening. Are you going to help me with this or not? Loki licks his lips. You never find out what he was planning to say, however, because someone begins banging on the heavy door so hard that it shakes. You shriek in surprise and scramble for your shirt. Based on what you've seen of the giant so far, you're about to have company.
Sire, apologies, but the Queen has requested your assistance at once. There has been an altercation in the throne room.
A man's voice calls from the other side of the door. Cursing, Loki pulls his own jacket back on, and then helps you right your collar. The back of his fingers just barely brushing against your skin, sending sparks racing through you.
Did you know? You are maddening.
He hisses, but you wrap your arms around his neck and drag him down for a kiss. And then your feet leave the ground as he hoists you up and pins you against the wall, his hands digging into your thighs.
I will be there in a moment.
He calls, voice slightly hoarse. And then he bites your lip, taking control of the kiss. The footsteps recede in the hallway, though you barely notice.
Is this what you wanted?
He asks in a whisper, pressing against you. Oh God, the want. You've never wanted anything in your life more than you want him. You aren't entirely certain if it would be possible to want anything more. Yes. He kisses you soundly, then pulls away, dropping you onto the cold stone floor.
Good.
He says, a snide little smirk on his face.
And you can enjoy our feelings alongside me while I deal with ruling a kingdom.
What? You sputter, your brain scrambling to catch up through the very lusty fog that's consumed you.
You are always very concerned with what is fair, isn't that so? Well, this is fairness. If you intend to torment me, then you can share my torment.
He holds out a hand and you take it, allowing him to pull you to your feet, your legs slightly shaking.
You should really know by now that it isn't wise to play games with me.
I wasn't playing a game. You begin to protest, but Loki places a quieting finger over your lips, shushing you.
Oh, yes you were. And now you've lost. Enjoy the consequences, mortal.
You feel a little bit like you're going to implode, and your skin is hot. Wait, Loki!
Hurry and put on your cloak. We haven't any time to lose. An altercation can mean anything. I need to take care of it, and quickly.
You're flabbergasted. How can he just turn himself off like that? Only he definitely isn't actually turned off, because if the way you're feeling is any indication with how he's feeling, he's about 2 breaths away from jumping you, and there's a very obvious bulge in his pants. Masochistic ass. Getting us both going and then literally dropping me? You think, your hands curling into fists at your sides. Though, to be fair, an altercation in the throne room does seem like a pretty significant concern. You bite back your boiling frustration and wrap your cloak around your shoulders, shuddering as the fur brushes against the too sensitive skin of your neck. Loki shoves the door open and storms out into the hallway, and you scramble to keep up, your legs still horribly wobbly. That did not work out as you hoped. The throne room is loud and chaotic when you reach it, and Gjalep is by your side almost the second that you step through the entryway, quickly ushering you over to the side. Giants fall to the side as Loki makes his way up to the dais, and you blink furiously as a golden glow sweeps over him. But there's nothing wrong with your eyes. He's changed his outfit with magic, it seems, a golden horned helmet appearing on his head. Well, that's definitely familiar, you think. It's a look that was splashed all over the news following the Battle of New York. There's a lump in your throat. You keep trying to ignore your nagging conscience about the whole Battle of New York situation. But that Loki, the Loki you had seen on TV, he doesn't seem like the Loki you've come to know. Sure, he wants to rule the world, but he isn't the crazed lunatic that you assumed when he launched a devastating attack on Earth. In fact, you can't really imagine him doing something like that now.
What is the meaning of this?
He asks as he settles onto his throne, his voice only slightly raised, and the chatter immediately dies.
Who has dared to disturb the peace of Loki Lofison's throne room?
Farbauti bows her head to him slightly, then turns back to the room.
Lord Kaldgrani has taken offense, my king, at the perceived slights he has received from my court.
The giant standing at the foot of the dais looks absolutely terrifying, and your pulse quickens. He's the guy you're going to visit? No way. You're pretty sure he's got to be at least 10 feet tall, as he towers over even most of the frost giants standing guard near the bottom of the steps. His skin is cracked and craggy, a molded sort of dark gray.
And what slights might those be, Lord Kaldgrani?
Queen Farbauti likes to imagine that she and her tribe still rule Jotunheim, sire. And that she has the right to question my presence in Utgard, to prevent us from developing valuable alliances with the rest of the Jotnar.
I think that he's made his reasons for coming to court perfectly clear, Farbauti. I will be travelling to the mountains tomorrow, along with the court, and I will consider a marriage alliance with the Begrisar.
And well you might, but I will not.
Meaning?
Meaning that I am also in need of another woman, and the queen refuses to negotiate with me.
Damn, he wants to marry Farbauti? Then you notice how tightly Gjalep is clutching your shoulder, and you look up to find her face pale, her bottom lip pinched between her teeth.
I did not refuse to negotiate. I only assured you that the girl's father would not approve of her wedding a mountain giant, and particularly not you, Kaldgrani. You know well that Gjordor would have no interest in uniting your houses.
Oh no. You frantically scan the crowd, realization hitting you like a freight train. Where's Greep?
That is the point of negotiations, is it not?
Nothing gives you the right to disrupt my court, Kaldgrani. Even your own search for marital bliss.
Loki says, drumming his fingers on the arm of his throne. You wonder if he's figured out that the guy's set his beady eyes on Greep. He probably has. Loki's always seemed pretty quick on the uptake. Some of the giants in the room laugh, but Kaldgrani just seems more pissed. The guy clearly has a temper.
Oh, great. Can't wait to stay at his house. That'll sure be fun.
You risk giving Gjalp's hand a reassuring little pat, and she squeezes your shoulder in acknowledgement.
I do not know where she is. She heard him discussing her with some of his men and fled the room before he approached Farbauti.
Queen Farbauti still holds sway over her own clan, of course. I will not interfere with such matters. I would suggest, however, that you show her the respect she deserves as the Queen Mother, particularly as you seek to gain my favour.
You catch Gjalp's eyes and nod towards the doorway.
Come on, let's find her.
You mouth. She looks conflicted, but after a moment she nods back and then pulls you carefully into the crowd, working your way towards the back of the room without drawing too much attention. Loki notices. You know he does, because you can feel just a little prickle of worry, but you trust that he'll assume that Gjalp is just removing you from the tense, potentially dangerous situation. As soon as you're in the hallway, Gjalp takes your hand and practically sprints.
I do not know where my sister has gone, but I could certainly make a guess.
She leads you down an unfamiliar hall, and you realize that you're moving farther and farther away from the heart of the palace, where Loki keeps you. The temperature in the air drops, and the halls narrow. You pass a few giants, but most of them seem to be servants, and other than a few curious looks, they don't pay you much mind. Finally, she reaches a door and begins to pound on it with all her might, her cheek slightly flushed. It opens after a moment, and Rostheehof stands there half-dressed, his eyes wide and innocent. There are a few bags on the nest of furs that must be his bed in the corner, and it looks like he's in the process of packing.
Yes? Can I help you?
He says, leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed against his chest.